Are you working with students who don't seem motivated to do their work unless they have an immediate deadline looming? I actually got a question about this on my executive functioning webinar the other day, and I wanted to pop in and answer it because I think it was a good question. So I talk a lot about how a lot of times students who are really anxious and nervous about new tasks are often experiencing executive functioning issues. A lot of times that can contribute to their anxiety. And I got a question on the webinar about, well, what if kids don't appear to be anxious? They just don't seem super motivated at all to get started with things. And they just seem to not care whether or not they get their work done. My first answer to that question is just because they don't appear anxious doesn't mean that they aren't. A lot of people are very internal with those kinds of feelings and they've learned to just repress it. I'm one of those people. I'm always told by other people that I just seem super chill and calm all the time. And a lot of times it's just that I have a really good poker face. I'm actually really nervous. I've just learned to be very calm and subdued on the outside. A lot of times I'm experiencing a lot of things on the inside and I'm actually very nervous. And I actually appear to be kind of maybe to other people, I might appear kind of bored and apathetic. And really that's just a coping mechanism. So that could be going on with those students. But what if they really aren't showing anxiety and you don't really have any reason to believe that they're anxious about new things? They just don't seem motivated. A lot of times kids are just not able to pace into the future and really see themselves being successful, feel the need to get started with things. And a lot of times they might be struggling with task initiation, just really envisioning those steps to get started. So number one, because they can't visualize those consequences of their actions, it is really hard for them to think way into the future and think about a consequence of something. And then a lot of times they can't really visualize those steps, so it is hard for them to get started. Just because they're acting like they don't care doesn't mean they actually don't care and maybe don't want some of those positive consequences of getting their work done. It's just that they don't necessarily have these internal skills to be able to delay gratification of whatever it is they're doing right now, which is just being comfortable. And maybe they don't necessarily know how to move on to a task that might feel less comfortable, might offer less immediate gratification. And again, we want to think about these things as skills, not personality traits or just attitudes. Now, a lot of times with kids, people know, well, they're procrastinating because they're on a device or they're doing something that's giving them, immediate dopamine boosts. And they're getting that immediate gratification from being on their phone or their device. What about kids who aren't necessarily on something that seems like it is a reinforcer, but they're still not really motivated to get started? Well, sometimes the act of just kind of sitting and not doing anything actually can be something that is a preferred activity in comparison to something that may be hard and unfamiliar. So, think about when you're just kind of sitting around on your couch, maybe watching TV or just kind of hanging out and you're comfortable, or even when you're laying in your bed in the morning, it's not something that is super exciting that you might look forward to, but it's something that is more reinforcing than starting a writing assignment, for example, or getting up and getting ready for school. This can be something that creates anxiety later down the line, especially if people have a history of delaying things and not knowing how to motivate themselves to start projects until the deadline is, again, immediate, especially if this is something where they've got work that piles up. And this is something that I talk about in my free online training about how to offer neurodiversity affirming support by building executive functioning skills. So this free training is for related service providers, speech pathologists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, teachers, anybody who is supporting kids. If you've got those kids who aren't super motivated to get started with their work or seem really anxious about getting started with their work, especially when it is challenging and has a lot of steps and planning required, I go through how to support kids with that profile in this training. So to sign up, you can go to drkarendudek-brannan.com /EF Leadership and grab your free spot.